Everyone. And as you probably just got the message, we are recording this program. My name is Tara Jackson. I'm the president of Arizona Town Hall. We have a wonderful program this morning, and we are recording it in part because we know that there are other people who can't be with us who want to view this. So we're really looking forward to the content of this program. And we also know there are others who will likely be joining us, but we do have a really robust program and we want to get started. This is our latest in our series of cross-border connecting programs that the Arizona Town Hall has put on beginning in July of 2020. The idea for this program, the inspiration, came out of a 2016 statewide town hall, and then a series of programs held in person in Hermosillo for every year after that, until we, of course, pivoted as part of the pandemic into this wonderful series. In this past year and a half, we have covered everything from economics, culture, how to handle the pandemic at the border. We've had councils, both Arizona councils and Mexico councils, panels. We've had a panel of mayors from both sides of the border. Our programs have been in Spanish and English and bilingual. What all of our programs have in common is that they are part of our mission and desire to help create a stronger region and to utilize the border as an asset for our region to be stronger economically, culturally, and just as a community. So we are really happy to have our first program focusing specifically on education today. Putting that program together is, and who will be hosting it today, is one of the people who has been at the forefront of not only organizing all of these programs for us over the last year and a half as part of this series, often acting as the interpreter, which is very important, and in summarizing the programs. She's also an incredible leader in Yuma, Arizona, and a past chairman of the board of the Arizona Town Hall. So she wears a lot of hats. We couldn't be happier to have her with us today. You'll meet her in just a moment. That's Linda Elliott-Nelson. But before I turn the program over to Linda, I want to give a special shout out to our sponsors. We couldn't do these programs without them. And once again, Linda's family comes in play here. One of our major sponsors is the Nelson Family Charitable Fund, who supports these programs, and also Jennings Strauss, the law firm. So with that, thanks again to our sponsors for this continued series. And I will now turn it over to the woman who wears so many hats in putting these programs together, Linda Elliott-Nelson.
Thank you, Tara. And thanks to all of you for attending today's forum on education persevering the pandemic. We have three distinguished panelists who represent unique perspectives and narratives on the high school system in the pandemic, a statewide impact, a high school district along the border, and a community leader, business, and parental viewpoint. I will introduce each speaker before they speak. After all of the presentations, there will be some time for questions and answers for our speakers. Please feel free to write your questions in the chat during the presentations. Our first speaker is Erin Eccleston, Senior Director, Community Impact, Education Forward, Arizona. As the Senior Director of Community Impact, Erin Eccleston leads the organization's team of regional community impact managers and sets the strategic direction for the organization's work in communities across the state. Through strategic partnerships, building public awareness, and activating champions for education, Erin and her team work to support a cohesive vision and aligned action plan for education in local communities across the state. Since joining the organization in 2013, Ms. Eccleston has led multiple local, regional, and state collaborations to advance equity in education and build support for achieving Arizona's education goals as measured by the Arizona Education Progress Meter. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Linda. And thank you to Arizona Town Hall for facilitating this wonderful discussion. And I'm so grateful to be sitting amongst two community leaders who are phenomenal in their respective fields, and being able to provide some more information on the parent perspectives that we gathered across the state during the pandemic. Before I do that, I'd love to introduce Education Forward Arizona. Education Forward Arizona is a newly formed education advocacy organization that focuses on advocating for education across the state of Arizona and across the education continuum. So P20, early education through post-secondary. Our organization was developed as a reflection of what business, education, and community leaders have said. We need bold actions now to support P20 education. Our organization's launch was informed by a very robust community engagement process that spanned 15 months and included feedback and input from hundreds of people across the state. And the work of this new organization brings together and expands on the work of Expect More Arizona, College Success Arizona, and Achieve 60 Arizona. So we're really excited to be a part of this conversation today. Next slide. At Education Forward Arizona, we believe a thriving economy and quality of life are possible when every single Arizona student has a fair shot at success. And that is no small feat. And so we, as an organization, have a mission to advocate for and act upon education improvements that advance the quality of life for all Arizonans. The work that we do as an organization and our approach is focused on being a strong voice for education and supporting a narrative that education is critically connected to Arizona's economy and quality of life and impacts all of us. We also focus on advocating for and advancing policies and important policies that will have a significant impact on students, communities, and our state as a whole. And finally, we focus on implementing programs of practice that can move the needle in communities directly with students to see real progress happening in real time. And so, next slide, please. We're measuring our success with the Arizona Education Progress Meter. This was co-developed in 2016 with the Center for the Future of Arizona. And it includes 8 indicators and goals that help us know where Arizona students are at, how they're doing. And each of the goals is driving towards the Achieve 60 AZ attainment goal, which is the North Star for our state. So the Arizona Education Progress Meter is a critical piece of our work. And we know that we have to make rapid acceleration if we want to meet these goals by 2030. And so this conversation that we're having today is really critical because we were already working to figure out how could we accelerate progress towards these goals before the pandemic. And now the pandemic, as we all know, has changed and rapidly changed our education system. And so this is not only an opportunity for reflection on what we've experienced, but also an opportunity to think about how can we grow as a state quicker and innovate in a way coming out of this pandemic that will not only aid in recovery, but move us on a path towards accelerated progress. Next slide. And that's what brings us to this conversation right now. What we experienced over the last year and a half was unplanned, obviously, unforeseeable, and unprecedented. And I think it was really critical for us as an organization to take time and truly understand the impact the pandemic has had on education from the perspective of parents and families. So our organization embarked on a listening tour session with parents all across the state. We held parent forums in 8 communities across Arizona, ranging from rural border communities to rural other parts of Arizona communities, as well as urban communities. And also we worked to figure out if there were similarities and differences between our English speaking parents and our predominantly Spanish speaking parents. So we held forums in both languages as well. All of the forums were conducted virtually. And we conducted these forums over the course of several months. So we held 4 forums in November of 2020, and then the remaining forums, 10, in fact, in March of 2021. We had a total of 87 participants. I will say that this opportunity was almost like a collective sigh from parents. It was this moment where they were reflecting together on what they had just experienced. That obviously was a little cathartic for them, but it also, I think for us, really elevated some central themes that regardless of the community parents were living in, came out, and that had elevated as if we're gonna really think about what do we need to focus on coming out of this pandemic and recovering, this is what we're hearing from parents. So next slide. Across all of the communities, there were 3 things that were resounding. First and foremost, the impact of the pandemic on students and families. This feedback ranged from loss of jobs, grief, seeing family members get sick, losing loved ones to the pandemic, to the virus. It also was parents sort of going from being in an office to now being at home and supporting their child's learning while they're also trying to work. This was an experience of their students going from the classroom to online and having struggled with that transition. The impact also included things like disruption of the learning environment. So going to online, then back to in-person and back to online, and sort of the inconsistency and challenges that were created by that. So the impact of the pandemic on students and families was definitely vast. The other thing that parents really were reflecting on is just mental health. And this came out amongst all of the forums. It came out in every single conversation, in every language, and it really was impactful, and it had a resonance amongst the families as they were reflecting on their experience, that mental health is a big concern of theirs, and how we as a state, as communities, and as school systems are working to support and address the mental health needs of our students. And then other things that came out as well was just the insufficient support for especially students with special needs, and how parents and families that have students with special needs felt like the pandemic was a stark contrast for their students, because the transition of their services didn't always lend themselves well to a digital online learning environment. And so there was a lot of concern from parents of students with special needs that the pandemic had disrupted their students' learning significantly. However, they also felt like before the pandemic, there was some lack of resources and services as well that they wanted to see expanded. Okay, next slide. The thing, I think it's worth pointing out that although we saw some very common themes arise amongst all of the forums, whether it was urban or rural, English or Spanish, we also saw some unique themes come out of our Spanish language forums in the different communities where they were held. And so we saw that in the Spanish language forums, there was a recognition of the impact their language barrier has on their ability to be effective advocates and champions for their students in the school, and to best understand the support and resources available to their students. So our Spanish-speaking parents felt like they weren't necessarily equipped to be as strong of advocates for their students as they wanted to be. And so that actually lended itself and transitioned into the next thing, which was the need for parent and family partnerships. I think our Spanish-speaking parents also felt like they have challenges and unique challenges with forming those partnerships with their students' teacher because, again, of the language barrier, as well as some other barriers that exist for our Spanish-speaking parents engaging in the classroom and with their schools. And then finally, the thing that came out amongst all of our Spanish-speaking forums across the state, which was elevated in some of the English language forums, but not nearly to the same extent, was the financial instability that the pandemic had created. Many of our Spanish-speaking parents had indicated loss of jobs, loss of hours, loss of wages, the impact that that's having on them as they're thinking about how to support their child's learning, how to put food on the table, how to keep the lights on, how to keep electricity running so their child can participate in online learning. There were some really very big and significant challenges and barriers that our Spanish-speaking parents had experienced. Next slide. So as we are thinking and as we dig in specifically on some of those central themes in particular that came out, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some of these leading concerns related to the pandemic, because there was a lot of robust information that we collected from parents as they were reflecting on what the impact of the pandemic meant for them and their students. And first and foremost, there were significant concerns over learning challenges. This ranged from access to technology and both access to technology and then also understanding and support on using the technology. So there was concerns over access overall to being able to contribute and engage in their online learning environment in a meaningful way. There was also a lot of discussion around students feeling disconnected and disengaged. I can say as a mom myself, I saw this from my daughter, who normally is really excited about school. Online learning for her at first, she's young, so at first it was like exciting and new. This is something different. Okay. And she was really engaged at first. And then slowly, as online learning continued, I saw her get more and more distracted and less engaged. And so I see that myself with my daughter. I can totally relate to how other parents were feeling and their students feeling disengaged and disconnected. Other things that came out from parents is just, there was a shift all of a sudden on parents, that they started to carry the burden of educating their child in a more hands-on way than they had before the pandemic. And so parents were more actively engaged in their child's daily lessons. And that was challenging for parents on so many levels. Some parents had mentioned that it was challenging because they didn't actually feel equipped to help their child. They didn't understand some of the content themselves. There was challenges in parents feeling like they were trying to juggle, childcare for their younger siblings and then helping their students be successful, or juggling work and helping their students be successful. There was just all of these different challenges that parents had started to experience, and it felt so heavy, and the burden being put onto their shoulders. There was also some current concerns that parents had reflected on around screen time and how much time our students were spending in front of computers, hours and hours and hours on end every day. And then also, as I mentioned before, the impact on students with special needs was definitely felt significantly. Every single parent who participated in one of the community forums and had a student with special needs talked about this. And so it came out very significantly amongst parents that they just felt unable to truly support their student in the way that they needed to, and that was really concerning for them about what the path to getting back on track would look like for their student in particular. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is just the impact on post-secondary plans. We had a lot of high school parents that we had connected with. And of course, you'll see that Lisa will talk a little bit about what the high school district in Yuma County is doing. And the thing that we heard from high school parents, and this was across the state, not just in Yuma, although I'll talk a little bit about Yuma specifically in a moment, parents were really concerned that their students, the disruption of learning had impacted not only their students' ability to graduate on time with their peers, to perform at the level they were performing at before the pandemic, but also rethinking what they do after high school. And that is a significant impact, not just on that student or that student's family, but on our communities and on our state, as we're thinking about the workforce of the future and our ability to ensure that our students are prepared for career and college coming out of high school and are on track to pursue post-secondary education or advanced job training, so that they can contribute to a meaningful career and contribute to our economy overall. And so that was really an impactful thing that came out. And I'll actually next slide share a quote in particular that I felt was so stark and really helped to share this story in a meaningful way from a parent. And this parent in particular was obviously of a high school student in Northern Arizona. My high schooler has always struggled with school. He sort of melted during his virtual education. He's such a social person. He barely kept his head above water. So we decided to keep him another year and delay his graduation and his post-secondary education. This parent decided to, and as part, conversation with their student, decided that that student would repeat their senior year, which delayed their plans. And the impact of that is uncertain at this point because this conversation happened last spring. So that student is now repeating their senior year of high school right now as we speak, and hopefully feeling like they're on the right path from now. But that's just one example of how high school students have really been impacted. I'm going to go to the next slide and talk about Yuma County. So in addition to collecting all of these central themes across the state, we also looked community by community to pull out specific themes at the community level. We held a forum in Yuma County with Yuma Union High School District parents, the parents we held a forum in English and in Spanish. So they were all high school parents or parents of high schoolers. They may have had some younger students and some college students as well, but in the context of this conversation, they were reflecting on the experience of their high school students. The key issues that came out were overwhelmingly about mental health. I think it's really important to recognize the disproportionate impact the pandemic had on Yuma County and what that meant to parents and families and students and educators and the community as a whole in Yuma County. Students were experiencing grief and loss, having lost family members, neighbors, community members, loved ones. They felt isolated and anxious. They were afraid of going back to school because they were afraid of whether or not they would catch COVID or maybe spread it to one of their family members who was at risk. These were really deep feelings. and concerns that came out of the parent conversations in Yuma County. In addition to that, parents felt like they had a lack of access to resources. There was parents who reflected on not having internet connection, that their internet connection was spotty, that they couldn't always join every class, and that their students were feeling concerned and anxious over that. And so that there was this overall concern that that there was disparities amongst what they had access to be able to support their child's learning in this new environment. Parents had reflected on the burden of advocacy. They feel like they have reflected on the fact that when their child needed specific supports or considerations, that they felt like they always had to advocate and fight for it, and that it was difficult and challenging, and that they didn't always feel equipped to have those conversations or know who to talk to. And there was some concern over how we as a community and as a state are addressing especially the mental health needs of students that these parents were speaking on behalf of. And then the parents also wanted to see just increased social and emotional competencies. They wanted to see that their students are learning how to cope with these very big, heavy situations. And that, you know, not to say that students weren't experiencing a lot of these same concerns before the pandemic, it's just that it's heightened. And so our parents in Yuma County definitely had reflected on these as being key concerns. And so I'm going to now go to the next slide and share this quote. This quote came from one of our Spanish-speaking parents in the Spanish Forum, and she was reflecting on her daughter. I have one daughter who became depressed. I am taking her to psychologists because she has a lot of bad thoughts. Then the death of her relatives, grandparents, one after the other, and then an aunt. That makes for a heavy backpack, a heavy burden. This is the type of things that our students are really dealing with and grappling with. And we have to understand this in order to really think about how do we then help them be successful at learning the content in the classroom. So we can't address one without the other. We have to combine our approach to engaging students, because they need to be in a mental space and ability to learn so that they can actually be successful in school. So next slide. Okay, so that's a lot that I just shared, and it may feel heavy. It feels heavy to me, but I think it's important for us to pay, in some way, I guess, give honor to what we have all just experienced. These parents that we heard from, every other parent across the state, our business community, our community leaders, our elected leaders, we've all experienced something that we could never have prepared for. But with that challenge and with those barriers, there are some things that have come out of that. We are now seeing parents, and this came out of our forums as well, parents reflecting on the relationships they have with their students' teacher now. This understanding of what's happening in the classroom, and this monumental respect for the profession of education, and that teachers are just amazing and so honored by parents now, because they saw exactly what was happening in classrooms and what these teachers had to do. Remember, it wasn't just parents and students that got removed, or students that got removed from the classrooms and parents having to support them. Our educators did as well. And many of them had kids of their own at home that were also learning at the same time. And so parents were reflecting on that. Other bright spots is that some of the gaps and barriers that parents were identifying had existed before the pandemic. Lack of access to internet and broadband, and lack of access to broadband, access to certain resources and certain career and technical education or career exploration opportunities. Some of these things had existed before the pandemic. It just was exacerbated or at least illuminated by the pandemic. And now we're all collectively as a state and community more aware of these gaps. And then there's more focus now on mental health than there had been before the pandemic. And I think that that's going to be a really important and reoccurring part of how we address and support students on their path to academic success. The other things is that we had this shared experience across the state for the first time ever, district by district, student by student, parent by parent, teacher by teacher, had one common thing that we all just experienced, which was the disruption of our learning environment. And that I think is unique in that it binds us together and that we have this shared experience now. And then other is that we have these opportunities now to address these barriers. And this conversation alone is an example of that. So that's another great bright spot. Next slide. I wanted to share this quote because I had shared a couple of quotes that were pretty heavy. And so this one, I think, really made me understand how parents are experiencing the pandemic and some of the bright spots that came out of this. Many teachers do a lot of extra things for students. Last year, at the start of the pandemic, his teacher did a lot of projects and sent them little things home. She made them feel special. We need more support for teachers to do things like that. They are in charge of our children for most of the day. So this is a new found respect and desire for increased support for teachers that came from one of the parents. Next slide. Okay, so here's what parents want to see. We also, in addition to reflecting on what they experienced, we talked a little bit with them about what would they want to see coming out of this. These are the things that came out significantly. And in some communities, they were elevated more. So in our rural communities, I would say that the expanded learning opportunities, career exploration and post-secondary support, as well as mental health support came out significantly. In our more urban communities, special education services and parent and family engagement came out in big ways. But across the board, parents really want to see more of these opportunities and want to see us take this lesson learned from the pandemic and apply that into a more robust, holistic, and supportive learning environment for students. So thank you so much. And I'll go to the next slide. Here's my contact info. So if you have any additional questions other than what we can discuss here in this forum, you can feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to connect with any of you on any of this information. And thanks again. I'll turn it back over to Linda.
Thank you, Erin, for that very insightful presentation. Our next speaker is Lisa Anderson, Associate Superintendent of the Yuma Union High School District. Lisa Anderson began her professional education career as a classroom teacher and as a high school counselor. Ms. Anderson's campus administrative experiences include guidance director and assistant principal from 2005 to 2009. In 2009, Ms. Anderson extended her leadership district-wide as executive director of student services prior to her promotion to associate superintendent in 2016. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for having me this afternoon and for giving me the opportunity to share the story of the Yuma Union High School District from the 2019 school year until today. We can go right on to the first slide. Thank you. So I'm going to start off just sharing information about the Yuma Union High School District. We are located in the southwest corner of Arizona, bordering Mexico and California. A high school district serving students 9th through 12th grade. We have 6 high schools, 5 comprehensive high schools, ranging in student enrollment from 1,200 to 2,600 students. Our 6th school is Vista High School, which is a small school model serving 300 students. Along with that, understanding the size of the district, we serve 5 different communities, which include San Luis, Arizona, Somerton, Gadsden, the city of Yuma, and the foothills of Yuma County. We do have students from San Luis, Mexico, attending our 6 high schools as they pay tuition to attend the schools. The district encompasses 2,400 square miles. Next slide, please. So who are we? Student population, we have a 90% minority student population, and we have 18% of our student body are eligible for migrant education program services, and that is at all of the 6 high schools. And approximately 10% of our student body are eligible for special education services. Enrollment. The enrollment captured at the end of the 21 school year, this was in May. So last May, our enrollment was 10,665 students, and that's pretty consistent for the Yuma Union High School District. Last enrollment, when we started school in August this year, watching the data of our students, we were at 10,592 students. But as of today, our enrollment is 11,345 students. And with that, we have our own online provider. So at the 6 high schools, we do have a 7th, which we call it our 7th high school. It's Yuma Online Distance Academy. And that has grown from prior years of having 10 to 12 students. We currently have 118 students enrolled in our online distance academy, and that's 100% virtual. While those students attend the virtual classes, they are still connected to their home school. So they still receive migrant services from their home school, and they still receive counseling support from their home school counselor. That gives you a snapshot of where we are and our student population. So this next slide starts with the school year 2020, the first day of school in August, and it takes you to the first day of school of this year. In March, I'm going to go before the August 6th timeline with the start of school in August of 2020. So if we go back to March 16th of 2020, is when the monitoring of the fast evolving global pandemic centered around COVID-19, and that prompted Governor Ducey to announce the closure of all Arizona schools. The Yuma Union High School District for the last 7-8 years has been a 1-to-1 district. So all of our students have laptops. And so when we closed in March, students had their laptops. Most of staff also have laptops to be able to work from home. So March 16th, what was considered to be daily operations of the schools now had to be rethought and restructured. The implications of an immediate shift in our daily operations of our schools required action to address the initial needs of our students and staff. Initial efforts immediately went into ensuring that our students would have a way to get breakfast and lunch. So we had to prioritize in this quick shift of what we're doing, prioritize what's best for our students and what do they need. And that became breakfast and lunch daily, with the health and safety of staff and students at the forefront. Next for our district was getting students on our learning management system, again, which we've been using across the district. Our learning management system is it's known as Canvas. And so we had to transfer courses into the remote venue, along with ensuring that the students knew how to access the Canvas. Teachers, it's a quick shift from day-to-day instruction in the classroom environment to an online environment. We used teachers, we used student voice and parents, as then we restructured what our school day would look like in remote learning. As you heard Erin say, the screen time and the burnout for students, having students on the screen from 7:45 till 2:45, listening to students and parents, we shortened our school day also having the opportunity to meet student needs in the afternoon for interventions and or teacher planning and teacher professional development. So during that remote time, March to May, and when we started school in August of 2020, our school schedule was a 7:45 to 12:45, shortened classroom sessions for teaching and learning, with the understanding that students would still have 100% of the time they have access to their Canvas course. So that required teachers to change the design of what their instruction looked like. From 1 o'clock to the end of the day, or even into the evening, were scheduled teacher office hours and or time for our counselors, our migrant advisors, our social workers, school psychologists to be reaching out to families, and also for students to attend group tutoring or one-on-one tutoring with their teachers. Equity of technology for students and teachers required data to find out who needed hotspots, arrangements for Wi-Fi, and the development of a system to address computer issues. And we have a strong technology department that we share with our one of our feeder districts. So when there were problems with laptops, ensuring that there are systems and help desks for students and parents to call when they were having technology issues. The sudden shift to distance learning really showcased how truly unprepared our society was as a whole for supporting our most precious resource, our students. During this time of uncertainty, our educators stepped up, and we also heard this from Erin, stepped up to help our parents become colleagues in the work. We had to provide training for our teachers in conducting live teaching and learning sessions, incorporating strategies for engagement while online, and developing rigorous lessons. Those were both explored with our teachers and then implemented. The new environment will require a change into the growth mindset, modifications of our curriculum, and a system to examine promising practices. The logistics of everyday school needed to be addressed, such as attendance, and most importantly, maintaining a connection with our students during the transition. Checking on the social emotional aspects of school was a priority in our operations. March through May of the 1920 school year allowed for resounding national choruses of grace before grades, relationships before rigor, patience before programs, love before lessons, and Maslow before Bloom's. Decisions in programming, in how we reached out to families, again, came from input from stakeholders in the community, and from parent groups, and from student advisory groups, and from teacher advisory groups. When driving by any one of our campuses during the remote or even hybrid learning models, you would see teachers manning supply pickup tents. You would see PE teachers or CTE teachers modeling live skills on camera for their students to reference later on in their lessons. Counselors, school psychologists, and social workers dividing up lists of students to contact, or even conducting home visits when we couldn't contact the families. Administrators and support staff completed thousands of drive-through events, registrations, our graduation in May of 2020, supply pickup, food pickup. And when necessary, our campus teams delivered to students' homes. The tasks, every task was always centered around what's best for our students. The end of the 1920 school year and the start of the 2021 school year would have Yuma Union teams planning, preparing, proactively adjusting, and pivoting with necessities to address the daily operation of our schools. As you can see from this timeline of operations, we went from remote to hybrid, back to remote, back to in-person with a remote option, through the end of the school year, and then we extended our school year for summer learning. And we also did that at the end of the 1920 school year. Moving away, the district's been moving away from final exams and assessments at the end of the school year, where it's an extended learning opportunity, really working at, time in education was the constant, and learning was the variable. And we were learning to change that. And learning is the constant and time was the variable. Similar to the beginning of the pandemic, hundreds of phone calls went to students, parents, to ensure that they had the resources, the training and support to log on to computers and access the learning management systems. When that wasn't available, or for our students with special needs, our teachers printed packets, created task boxes. They spent hours transitioning transitioning their paper assessments and resources to digital copies in order to provide the supports that were needed for our students to be successful and to continue in their learning. August of 2020 through the first semester, and actually through the entire school year, I would say that our teachers spent time as scientists, testing out new hypotheses and using data to reflect on their effectiveness. And you see where we went from remote to hybrid, back to remote, and then back to that in-person remote. Not going back to a hybrid was part of that science and that experimentation that wasn't in the best interest of our students, hearing from students and teachers. Teachers in the support mastered new technology and how to record videos. So the learning was there for students if they were having issues. Teachers spent time after school, evenings and weekends perfecting their daily lessons, as the time on camera with the students was shortened, but they needed to have engaging learning opportunities for students. We collected evidence throughout the year and a half. We continue to collect evidence and data of resources that were used from the teachers, from students, flow charts, Canvas checks of students. And in May of 2020 and in May of 2021, we extended into summer learning. So while the semester officially ended for students and perhaps there was graduation, we encouraged students to continue learning throughout the summer with the 19-day summer opportunity, whether it was to continue the learning in the courses that they were currently enrolled in, to work with their teachers to be able to demonstrate mastery, and or to work on courses that maybe they weren't successful in prior years. Starting this year, in August, we returned to full in-person with the opportunity for students to enroll in our online distance academy and being able to continue to provide the supports for that. And the next slide. So some of the things that I highlighted that we felt were really important. And so, like I said at the beginning of the pandemic, the number one, when the district closed, the number one concern was student nutrition. Have 100% free breakfast and free lunch at 6 high schools. And we felt, our teams felt that was most important to get running. So working with our student nutrition department, ensuring that we had drive-through and or drop-off opportunities for breakfast and lunch. The times were modified as needed to continue to meet the needs of the family. And this included hybrid. So during the hybrid, if I was a student and I was attending school 2 days during the week and I was home, we still had the opportunities for pickup or drive-through for breakfast and lunch for the students. Next slide, please. Technology, again, using data. While we know that our students we're a one-to-one district, so students and staff had devices. The next was, do they, the internet, the capability of students, what needs were there? The students that, even with hotspots, we do have a couple areas in Yuma County that even with the hotspot, they weren't able to access Wi-Fi. Then it was a coordination of transportation to bring the students to our campuses, along with students that had special needs and needed a quiet place to work, being able to offer transportation to bring the students safely into our campuses to be able to continue their learning. Our technology department, in partnership with our campus leaders, organized socially distanced end of the year. So at the end of the year, we collect all the netbooks and they get ghosted and cleaned up, and likewise distributing to new students. Everything was done on a drive-through to distribute the necessary technology for students so they could continue in their learning. Next slide, please. So Canvas is our learning management system. We saw a 200% increase in student usage of Canvas. All learning was through Canvas, and we saw an increase in 300% in collaborative discussions on Canvas. And what does that mean? That's the Google Hangout. So when students were logged into their Canvas course and they used Canvas to either communicate and interact with their teacher and or small groups or another peer in their classroom. Our staff they earned or participated individually in over 221 hours of professional development by learning Canvas. Again, the instruction changed for teachers. So as teacher was not in front of the class for 20, 30 minutes, a teacher facilitated the learning in the short 30 to 45 minutes that they had the students in front of them. But being able to develop lessons that were personalized for students and that allowed for student choice and student agency. Teachers managed new technology such as online engagement websites, recording the video, Google Meets, WebEx, Canvas apps, and much more. Communication, and just a little insight, all of these pictures are we captured from this past year in the pandemic with our staff and our students. So these pictures are from Yuma Union staff, and this is actually the picture of one of our migrant advisors at a campus handing out supplies at a drive-through event at one of the campuses. Messaging and communication was so important. Messaging in our district uses Blackboard. We send emails. If we have the correct email address, we send text messages and then phone calls. And we had teams and teams reaching families. Updates were sent to families in both English and Spanish throughout the duration of the school year. And we continue with that practice, including regular scheduled updates during school closures. The multimedia, we are very fortunate now we have a chief communications officer and have communication liaisons on our campuses. So that liaison with the district team back to the campus team to be able to support in the communication. All 7 websites, all the district website and all 6 high school websites had information and resources. So we felt we could direct families or community members to one spot on our website. We hosted not only at the district level for our teachers, but also our campuses, our campus administration and our teachers hosted live Facebook events so that the students and the parents could engage in questioning so that we had clarity in the messaging. And then district and campus personnel made appearances on local media, including our Spanish language TV, radio, and newspaper. So we really it was really strategic in the communication to ensure that everyone was receiving the communication. Next, please. And the last one, as Erin reflected on also, is the social emotional. Checking on the social emotional aspects of school was along with the breakfast and lunch, the social emotional was next. And not only, I think a huge aha, what you model at the district level, modeling for our campus leaders and our teachers, or all of our employees, not only keeping in contact with our students and our families, but that was required of our employees. That everything that we heard of the ahas, the takeaways, and the loss the grief, the financial, the taking care of families, that was just as important for our employees. And so as teachers and counselors made consistent check-ins with students as a part of a weekly routine, it was built in, logs were kept, data was collected. We also ensured that from the district level of our employees at the campuses and throughout the Yuma Union High School District. As we returned this fall to school, last year we had 2 social workers on, we had Vista High School and 1 at Yuma High School. We took advantage and applied for the school safety grants through the Department of Education. And this year we started school with a full team of 6 social workers, 1 at every high school. So when you look around building social emotional support and being a liaison with community agencies, having those social workers in place at the campuses to work alongside the campus leadership and the counselors and the teachers to be able to provide supports and resources for parents and to have somebody as that liaison and to help families connect. Along with that, we have partnered with community agencies to provide therapists in our schools for this upcoming school year. So continuing community partnerships to ensure that we have community resources to support our families and our students. So what's the evidence? So we walk away and we look at what's the data. Staying in school, this is dropout rate, and this is from the 1920 school year. So while day-to-day operations at the campus level were ensuring the safety and well-being of students and staff, ensuring that the meals were provided for students, social emotional checks for both groups, ensuring teaching and learning was happening from the district perspective and district teams. Again, supporting campuses, but then keeping our finger on the pulse of what does it look like? Do we have all the students? Do we have, where are our families at? What do our students need? Dropout rate for the 1920, and we tend to hover around 1%. Our dropout rate was 1.35% for the 1920 school year, compared to the state average of 3.33. And the last one would be our graduation rates. This is the last slide for today. And this is the cohort of 2020. And you heard Erin, you saw in one of her first slides about the goal for 2030. And Yuma Union, we reviewed that report and we've kept that, we have our own targets. Our graduation rate for the cohort 2020 was 91.28% compared to the state average. Looking at we have a preliminary from last year, 2021. Right now we're Yuma Union, it looks like we're at about 86%. So there is a drop and the dropout rate's a little bit higher, but that 86% is also looking at students who continued as seniors who might not. We heard a parent quote about a student not being ready. And we welcomed if there were families and students that were not ready that weren't able to engage in the learning over the last year, the learning's still here, and we will support you and provide different opportunities for students and families to continue what they need to, the students need to complete the school year and to finish out. So for this year right now, again, just a preliminary, we're at about 86% with the graduation rate. Taking the next step, looking from, again, the 1920 school year post-secondary enrollment, Yuma Union was at, our students, we have 66% of our high school graduates continued their education, whether that be at a community college, a 4-year university, and or a technical or a trade school, compared to the average the state average of 55% for the state of Arizona. So continually watching the metrics and ensuring that our students are supported, students and families supported as they transition from Yuma Union into college, career, and or community.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing that information.
Thank
Our
you.
third speaker today is Shelley Mellon, who is the owner broker of R.L. Jones Insurance, Inc., but she is better described as a community leader. I'm going to share some of what her accomplishments are and her recognitions. She serves as the chair of the Southwest Arizona Town Hall, the chair of the Yuma Education Advocacy Council, the director of the Yuma Youth Leadership Council, the director of the Yuma Youth Town Hall, and some of her recognitions include recipient of the International Athena Award, Yuma County Citizen of the Year, Arizona Community Foundation Outstanding Leader, and Arizona Business Women's Territorial Charter Chapter Her Story recipient. Shelley is going to speak with us from her perspective as a community leader, employer, and parent. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you, Linda and Tara and Arizona Town Hall, and to all of you for joining in these conversations and for allowing me to share some personal experiences with you. Many of us in our community wear many different hats or have different roles that we represent or work with. And I'm going to share a few of my roles today. And I know that all of us would agree that we would never have imagined that in March of 2020, we would experience a global pandemic. All of us had to quickly adjust and to develop our family and life, business and community plans to try to best navigate these uncharted territories. And I'm sure if we all sat down for coffee, to me, coffee is always a safe place to meet and to share, that we would learn so much about our individual journeys through the last year and a half. But I must say, I've been amazed at the level of creativity, ingenuity that has developed through these hard times. I also believe we are forever changed because of this last year and a half. You heard Lisa Anderson share how the high schools diligently adapted and continued to grow and to develop tools to best reach and support and educate all students. And then Erin shared with us the raw, honest feedback from parents across the state of what they were experiencing and the challenges that they had with their families and children. But I truly believe at the end of the day, we all want what is best for our students, our families, and communities, even though we may have vastly different opinions on how to best strategize to attain these goals. Personally, this is from my family as a parent of a senior of the class of 2020, and I think many can join in. We thought when our child was promoted to kindergarten and then promoted in 8th grade, we thought that 2020, the 2020 vision, that year was going to be such a special year for them to graduate. We didn't envision that special meant that there was going to be a pandemic. Were we faced with some harsh realities? Absolutely. For my son, his varsity baseball season was finished. At first, I thought it was 2 weeks off, but it was finished. And then senior celebrations were very different. But hopefully our children saw how we as families, educators, and communities were doing our very best to navigate through these challenging times. His high school created an amazing drive-through graduation where they had their pictures up on the fence, and our family drove through, and the counselors were cheering, and their principal handed him his diploma. And then the district created a virtual graduation so families could be together and hear the speeches and have their graduate recognized. Families all over the world were experiencing similar transitions. My son went to a high school that didn't see as much personal family loss as other schools in our community, and I was very open with him about discussing the challenges and the traumatic loss of families in San Luis and other parts of our community. Perhaps these challenging times allowed us to talk to our children about the different experiences and viewpoints, and encourage them to be compassionate for those that may see things differently or have experienced greater loss and have deep fears of returning to school and activities. Many have such simple solutions. I think we all can just think of simple solutions to navigate these times, but there really were no easy solutions. I also realized that we've been challenged with very polarizing opinions, but I believe at the end of the day, if we truly took the time to listen and to understand, we would realize that we have so much more in common than we think. And I think our students and our children actually understand this better at times than we do as adults. Those times of conversation with our children are life lessons, I believe, that have the ability to transcend those moments of disappointment. We all value being heard, having a safe place to share, and the validation of our emotions and fears. But hopefully those conversations, those vulnerable conversations with our children, will build tools and skills that will last a lifetime for this young generation, and we'll see a lot of that fruit come to fruition in the future as they go through life. So I'd like to now transition to another hat, another role, another important part of my life and family. My great-grandfather, Earl Roberts, began R.L. Jones Custom House Brokerage in 1938 in Calexico, California, and opened the office in San Luis, Arizona in 1956. My father, Russ Jones, joined the brokerage in 1974, and he expanded the businesses in US and Mexico along the US-Mexico border from San Luis to Texas. And our family and my father is very proud that he is a founding member of the incorporation of the city of San Luis. Parts of my family work and live in Mexico. I grew up going to work with my dad at a very young age in San Luis, Arizona, and in San Luis, Mexico. I have such great memories of going back and forth across the border to play with childhood friends and to be with my family. Many of us in this region, we have grown up embracing and understanding that our communities in Arizona and in Sonora and Baja, we are a whole region that is extremely interreliant with one another. I officially, or I somewhat got a paycheck, started with R.L. Jones Insurance in 1990 as a business owner along the border in San Luis and in Yuma. I've always tried my best to understand the culture and to accommodate the families of our organization. We have been very deliberate and focused in building a family culture for our company. We realize that we spend more awake time together than we actually do with our families. So we would like to have a good time too. So we have family celebrations where the employees and all their families come, and we play lots of silly games and eat lots of food. But we are extremely fierce at our volleyball. Volleyball is very serious, and that is bragging rights for a whole year, whichever team wins. So that's very important to us. But I've been very fortunate to see the children of R.L. Jones Insurance grow up and go to college and pursue their careers and even come to work for R.L. Jones Insurance. So that's pretty cool too. But we also take our customer service training very seriously. We believe that customer service begins with how we treat one another in the office. We strive to have a very welcoming environment. We encourage and support upward mobility of our team, continuing education of our team, and certifications opportunities for each person. And we fully understand the importance of our team being able to be at their children's school functions and celebrations. Just to give you a little insight of how we manage this, our business, all our employees have special licenses to provide insurance or motor vehicle services they study very hard and must pass a long test to be able to receive their licenses and certifications. So we don't have this extra pool of employees to pull from to work and to cover those services. So it really takes everyone doing their part to support one another. And, you know, our children have doctor's appointments, and we have illness and things we need to be at. So we're able to support one another as a family. So we've built all of that into our culture. I share that to lead into the next area I would like to talk about. So when March 2020 happened, we were fortunate that we had already created these lines of communication and trust with our team. However, we knew this was a different level, that we needed to best understand the challenges and the fears of the team members and what they were experiencing. We've had some team members that lost many family members. One lost 4 aunts and uncles in 2 weeks. And so we needed to show extra compassion and listen and accommodate and communicate and be extremely flexible with our team. Our management team met daily and hourly, minute by minute, to develop our best practices to protect our staff and our customers. Many of our employees have young children, and they were navigating their personal situation. So what we did is we decided to equip our insurance agents and accounting employees with young children to be able to work from home. So many of our staff also, they travel back and forth across the border, you know, to see family, or their family helps them take care of their young children. So we adjusted our hours to work with the border wait times. We also realized there was an increase in stress levels. So we adjust our hours also so employees could have time off. And so we closed on Saturdays, and we opened later, and we ended the day earlier so people had time to recuperate. To accommodate for social distancing, that was another challenge. Our offices are usually pretty full. Now that we moved from home, we were able to reconfigure the offices. So those that were out front in the main area, we moved some to the back accounting areas, and we had a team of all of us pulling together to remodel and reconfigure our office over a weekend to be able to open on Monday. But fortunately, we do have 3 locations. So if we had exposures or we had people out, or we could close one, we could close 8th Street and still take care of our customers at the other locations. But I must say, so I believe the people that were working at home, they worked extra hard, and because they were managing their children, like we had talked about, the education, and making sure that they called our customers to make sure they were okay. We've had many generations of families that have done business with us, and they've become family. So we would check on them, make sure that their insurance was intact, and they didn't have any lack of coverage, lapse of coverage. And so our agents at home were so great about doing this, and so that helped us to be able to continue to stay in business and keep everybody employed through these times. Another area Linda mentioned, one of my favorite areas is Yuma Youth Leadership, and I'm honored to be the director of the Yuma Youth Leadership Program. It consists of 25 to 30 juniors in Yuma County in high school. And we have a once-a-month program day that highlights different career pathways. And at the end of the day, we have what we call habitudes. We do some about an hour and a half of leadership training at the end of the day. Each program day is focused on a different area. We have medical services day where we're at the hospital. We have agriculture day where we start at the border and we go through harvest to seed to packaging and technology, government, law, military, all these different nonprofits, media, marketing. Then we have a day that's so much fun. We go to Scottsdale at a Marriott resort for our hospitality day. But that all changed this year. We couldn't travel in our vans to go to all these locations. So we had to adjust. And so what we did is we engaged the students in virtual local town halls, and some that were with people from across the state. But one of the things, and Erin mentioned this, and I thought this was really good because these town halls were with adults and with students, and the adults were able to hear the students' perspective on some of the challenges that they were facing. But one of the challenges that was illuminated is broadband and the speed of broadband. I know we have many community leaders that have been working really hard to expand that in Yuma County, but I think that those adults saw that, for instance, I mean, I could put all of the students up and I can tell you who's from what part of the county, who is in an area that doesn't have, speedy, that their broadband is very challenging. Their conversations got cut off and were like robots at times. So that is a spot that, even though that was, not fun, but it did illuminate that we need to continue with those efforts with broadband. And I have to brag a little bit about all these students and the students at the district, and like Lisa was sharing about the college going rates and the post attainment and the graduation rates are the highest in the state. I just have to share that doesn't happen by chance. This is accomplished through the collaboration of all of our districts in Yuma County and our community coming together to strengthen the P20 mindset. And P20 is the early learning all the way through post-attainment to college, and making sure that they are, college and career and community ready, and understanding that and helping our employers and our community understand that as well. So another area that Linda mentioned is, which Linda and Erin also are involved in, is the Yuma Education Advocacy Council. We are a group of community leaders, and we are comprised mostly of the business sectors. We do have some members of the council representing education. We believe as employers, we need to listen and to better understand the challenges of the education community and how we can best champion education for Yuma County and for Arizona. We're all in this together. So we want our students to have the opportunities to pursue a career in Yuma County. We are so proud of our districts and want to make sure we continue to bridge the efforts of education, career pathways, community enrichment. Economic development is so important, and increase those opportunities for all students. So it's vital for employers to strategize with education to best equip our students to be able to have a vast variety of career pathways, and that they can thrive and live with their families in Yuma County. So we know the importance. It's an importance of attracting and retaining teachers and creating an educated workforce. And many of the organizations in our community have really been very diligent on growing our own. How can we connect with those students and allow them to see the opportunities that they have, that they can grow and work and live in Yuma County? So I would like to thank you for your time. I'm truly grateful for the education I received here in Yuma County. I went through Yuma Elementary School District 1 and Yuma Union High School District when there were only 2 high schools at the time, Yuma and Copa King, Arizona Western College, and the University of Arizona. I'm so grateful also. My kids received such an excellent education here in Yuma, and I have to share this part too, and I usually try to. We are blessed to live in such an amazing community, and we really truly care about one another. And I know it's been said about Yuma County across the state, and I think it's even gotten to national levels, that Yuma County collaborates and we find creative ways to advocate what's best for our students and community. But I also must share that I'm also extremely grateful to live in a robust binational region where we beautifully demonstrate, I think we demonstrate to the world the vital importance of our friendships and our families. So thank you so much. I look forward to your questions, and thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much, Shelley. That was very informative and inspiring. I think we have enough time for one quick question. So I'm going to ask it of Lisa and say, we've talked so much about the challenges over the past year and a half. What stories and or people of what you've seen have inspired you?
Wow, wonderful question. The people that have inspired me, the Yuma community, and as Shelley alluded, the partnerships in the Yuma community, and then I would say the students. I have individual stories of different students and what they've gone through, but really collectively, the students of, I would even say Yuma County, all of our students. Inspires me every day.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And thanks to our three speakers for sharing their narratives and their perspectives of how education is persevering the pandemic. I will turn the program over to our president and CEO, Tara Jackson. Tara?
Thanks, Linda. Thanks so much, not only for putting this program together, but moderating it and putting such a great panel together with Erin, Lisa, and Shelley. You know, one of the things I first learned about Yuma when I started traveling around the state at the Arizona Town Hall is that there was something really unique about Yuma, and that was its ability as a community to collaborate and come together in ways that I didn't see in the same way around the state. And Yuma as a binational region, Shelley, thanks for bringing that up, also is a great example of why it is so important for all of us to see the border as an asset, not a dividing line, and how that can enrich the entire region. You know, this was such a fascinating presentation for me to listen to in two ways. One is that we absolutely have to look at those hard facts and the challenges that we have all been through as a state, as a nation, as the world, and all of you highlighted some of those. But we also have to look at where are the opportunities. Where were those bright spots? Lisa, thanks for answering that question. And we saw a few other bright spots that came out of this, whether it was creative thinking. The pandemic also exacerbated or highlighted existing issues that perhaps we now know we really need to address. Broadband, for example, I know on a statewide level, there are a lot of efforts to expand broadband throughout the state, and we will certainly be working on that at the town hall on behalf of the entire state and some of the other partners that we come together with. A few other things, as I heard all of you talking, if you don't know, we have been, for some of you may not know this, our topic officially for the Arizona Town Hall has been creating vibrant communities, a topic selected before the pandemic hit, but one that couldn't have been more on point given what we've all been through. And I think perhaps it was both Erin and Lisa who mentioned areas where the educational attainment is closely related to whether you have food, whether you have a supportive family, how you feel when you show up for that education. And that's really one of the concluding aspects about the Creating Vibrant Communities topic, that for a vibrant community, all of those pieces need to be considered and come together. And while this program is not specifically about Yuma, Yuma is very representative of how to do that in the best way possible, and really a model for how to bring the community together. One of the areas that we have repeatedly found with our discussions throughout the last year and a half in communities across the state, and even in other states and with Mexico, is how mental health is rising as an issue that needs to be addressed in even more distinct ways. And it's great to hear that Yuma's brought in extra social workers. That was an area that we had heard before the pandemic that was already needed. And so I thought it was relevant here to bring up our topic that we'll be addressing officially as the Arizona Town Hall, our big topic starting next year, which is mental health, substance use, and homelessness. A topic that was selected before the pandemic, and again, could not be more relevant. We're already beginning to explore that. And so if you're interested in having programs on that and community discussions, just let us know. Those will start next year. If you're interested in attending our statewide town hall on creating vibrant communities, and Yuma's had a lot of programs on these topics as well, that has been scheduled for January 24th through the 26th. It's originally going to be in November, but we're all right adjusting to different calendar changes with the pandemic. We will be having a virtual component so that we can honor those who would feel most comfortable giving their voice if they can attend virtually. And finally, in addition to once again thanking our sponsors, the Nelson Family Charitable Fund and Jennings Strauss, I wanted to bring up that this is a series, and we have another wonderful program coming up. You'll see it in a survey in your inbox, and it is scheduled for November 4th. There's a panel of local experts talking about economic development. So, binationally, how can we improve and create even a more robust economy in the area? So lots of things coming up. Again, if you want to respond to the survey that you should have in your inbox, or if you want to be involved in any way, we hope to see you again soon. We collectively at the Arizona Town Hall really want to make sure that we're representing not only the entire state, but this very, very important binational region. So thanks again, Linda, and all of our speakers, and thanks to all of you for being here. Hope to see you again soon.